Hello, welcome back to Habits and Health Span, an Amway podcast. We're so glad that you're joining us today. We have, as always, a special guest with us, which we will introduce in just a moment. But my name is Alyssa. It's good to see you again. I'm joined, as always, by John. Hello, John.
Hey, Alyssa, it's always great working with you. I was so thrilled coming in today because you're such a pleasure to work with. You're beautiful inside and out, and I'm laying on the compliments today.
This is great. Keep it coming. Thank you.
I am going to say one compliment that I think everyone at home is always thinking if they're watching our videos, which is you have incredible hair. You get that a lot, don't you?
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
I'm just curious. Like, is that natural for you? Sure. I mean, surely it comes out that way. But do you do anything? You have routines?
Yeah. I mean, how do you define natural? When I wake up, it does not quite look like this. Let's just say that. I do have to work a little bit at it. But the right products, the right things, you know.
You have all your little bottles lined up.
I have multiple bottles.
I think that's where you and I depart in one of many ways, which is I'm a classic guy. You go into my bathroom, you look at my shower, I got the one bottle. Every single product I need for my hair has been all mushed together into one thing.
I love it. I have to say, your hair is very nice also.
Stop. I wasn't aiming for a compliment.
I'm just returning, but it's true.
Thank you.
We are very different, right? So my hair is curly, yours is straight. You go with bare minimum. I might do a little bit more. On Habits and Health Span, we like to talk about everything from our head to our toes, and today is no exception. To help us on this journey, we have Desmond Tobin. He's professor of dermatological science at University College Dublin and also a member of the Amway Scientific Advisory Board. Welcome to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Desmond, would you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and some of your background?
So I'm a biological science, John. My focus is on cells and tissues. For my PhD, though, I studied a hair follicle disorder that causes dramatic hair loss, where the body appears to attack its own hair follicle, called alopecia areata.
I'm super excited to dig into all things scalp health with you, Desmond, but I'm particularly excited because we discovered before we started rolling that we also have another connection, which is you're at the University College Dublin, which is actually where I got the opportunity to study abroad in college. So I remember my days at UCD so fondly. I absolutely loved it. Their beautiful campus. It's fantastic.
Well, it's a very fine university, the largest in Ireland, and it has a very strong outreach to other parts of the world. So it's great to see students from the States coming over too.
Let's get started with our first question. I can't wait to learn from you. We're talking about that scalp health, which you're studying. Can we go broad for a second and you can share with us, how does scalp health relate to our overall health span?
So that's a very good question. The scalp on our face is about 10% of our total body surface area. So it's a significant part of our body. And unlike both of you who fuss a lot over your hair, I don't have very much need to do that now. But the question is, what happens underneath the hair? So what is the scalp providing either to the total body health or to the health of the follicle in order for the hair to grow efficiently?
Could you, for people who this is brand new to, could you speak to that just a little bit more simply?
Sure. So our scalp, for those of you who ever had a cut on your scalp, you'll know that it's filled with blood. There's a very high vascular content to the scalp. For those of you who like a head massage, a lot of people fall asleep in hair salons, for example, and that's because the follicles are very enriched with nerve endings. So the scalp is unusual in having a very high volume of blood, but also lots and lots of nerve endings. But it also has a lot of sweat glands. It probably releases about a liter of water per day, for example. And we also have these other glands, the sebum-producing glands, that provide oil for the skin of the scalp, but also oil for the hair. So there's a lot going on in the scalp. And of course, we walk upright now, apart from, by comparison with our earlier times in evolution. So the head and the scalp are very strong social signals. And of course, they're very exposed to the environment as well. So the scalp is a very good microcosm as to what the world and nature can throw at the body.
So when you say they're social signals, what exactly does that mean?
So by contrast to our nearest living primate, the chimpanzee, for example, or the gorilla, humans can grow remarkably luxuriant pigmented scalp hair. This is really quite exceptional and is probably very much connected with how we evolved as a species under the sun, but also in social gatherings. So we communicate a huge amount via our faces, by our eyebrows, our eyelashes, our hair. So there's an awful lot invested for our species in the face and the scalp and the hair that it produces.
I see we communicate a lot by what we're presenting with our hair.
Yeah, very much so. And perhaps, while our skin and our face can be scrutinized very easily, the scalp is not so accessible to scrutiny because it's typically covered by hair. So there are many reasons to perhaps spend a little bit more time on focusing on scalp health if it's not immediately visible looking back at you from the mirror.
That's amazing because, like we talked about, I have a lot of hair, but that it sounds like there's so much more to just what we see because so much is happening beneath the surface. So what's going on beneath the surface of our scalp that affects hair strength?
Typically, you can see in the context of hair, the scalp being the soil in which those hair follicles are growing, a little bit like plants needing good quality soil to grow well. Typically, if you have a full head of hair, you may have those hair follicles penetrating 3, 4, 5 millimeters into the skin, which is really quite deep. If you start to lose your hair, like I am, the scalp becomes less thick. It doesn't have to accommodate such deeply penetrating hair follicles. So we get some loss of tissue in the scalp of a balding person by contrast to someone who has a full head of hair. So that soil in which those follicles are growing it shows you this kind of close association between the scalp and scalp health and the ability of those follicles to produce the hair fibers long enough, dark enough to suit the cosmetic wishes of the bearer.
So Desmond, I love this image that you have of your scalp is like the soil, which for me begs the question, how much of it is really just sort of the natural makeup of the soil, to finish the metaphor, the genetics of the person, versus environmental factors?
Like in a lot of body systems, your inheritance is going to play a very significant role. That's what we call the genetics. But in addition to that, we have a whole other regulatory level called epigenetics, which is really the interplay between the genes that you've inherited by lottery, in a sense, but also the environmental stimuli that come as you age that will then cause those genes to behave in particular ways. So while there is certain genetic fixity or certain genetic realities that are unlikely to be very significantly altered, there's a lot of nuancing that can be done throughout our lives to ensure that the best functionality of the tissue can be encouraged.
Okay, so Desmond, you're saying that I have genes that will affect my scalp and hair health. But in addition to that, there's something you said, the word epigenetics, which I think is so cool, which talks then also about the environmental factors that are also playing a role?
That's right. So even in identical twins, you'll see that they age differently. For example, you may have a smoker twin and non-smoker twin, and they may have very different trajectories in terms of their skin aging and potentially also the rate at which they bald. So while they're identical genetically, there is still a lot to play with in terms of modulating or not fully manipulating, but balancing up the strengths versus the weaknesses that come with a particular genetic inheritance.
So you mentioned smoking, Desmond. What are some other environmental factors that might be impacting my scalp health specifically?
So like skin all over the body, unprotected ultraviolet light, even though on your scalp you've got a really dense thatch.
It gets thick for sure.
But there's not a lot of space for UV rays to penetrate, but some will. And of course, as people thin, the amount of their scalp that is exposed to ultraviolet light increases and increases. So on my scalp, I would get a lot of sun exposure. So the types of stress that my scalp is experiencing predominantly will be from ultraviolet light in the same way as the skin of my face. There's some suggestion that in addition to the scalp skin being adversely affected, the actual ability of the follicles to behave optimally can also be affected. So that's the most obvious one. But then the other kind of main one is that In the start, you mentioned product use.
I was worried about this. All right, let me hear the news.
So obviously the physical side from the sunlight, and maybe also high temperatures through blow drying, etc. Those physical stresses can be significant in terms of the quality of the hair and the scalp, but also the myriad chemicals that now end up essentially on our bodies. We're exposed to more chemicals through cosmetics than we are through drugs, through pharmaceuticals. So if you look at the back of any kind of hair care product bottle, you'll see a long, long list of ingredients. Not all of those will have been assessed for optimal hair function or optimal scalp function. So, and then there's more dramatic interventions people like to do with their hair. Perhaps hair is the most easily changed, feature of our appearance. You can change its color, you can change its shape within minutes and for just a few cents. So you can't do that with any other part of our appearance, short of knocking out your teeth, for example, in a few seconds. Really quite a malleable structure, but one that's also very prone to damage through these types of chemical exposures if they're not carefully balanced and also carefully selected.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to how quickly we change our appearance. Desmond, you should have seen me when I arrived to set today. Our incredible hair and makeup artist really did a number to tame all of this. You mentioned earlier, Desmond, how our scalp and our hair function as social signals. But I also find that there's sort of a relationship that I have on the inside with my hair, which is my emotional stake and impact, how much effort maybe I put into my hair, or maybe even just I'm so frustrated trying to get that little tuft in the back down. And it's this feedback loop. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are the connections between our scalp health and our mental health?
So this is a very timely question as we live in communities with many and much diversity, where there can be a lot of envy. Certain people may look across the subway and see someone with a hair type that they would love. It's amazing how many people with straight hair want curly hair, long hair, short hair, and different colors of hair. So it's a huge mirror of ourselves, both internally and externally, because of that powerful sensor effect of hair and scalp. Typically, where you see the biggest impacts in psychological change or disquiet is often related to aging. So there can be a loss of, say, hair color going from one to another in your early years. So typically, young people from a European ancestry may start off with blonde hair, but very quickly go to brown hair, and they may have a little bit of sadness when that happens. Some people will also have the same impact if they start to lose their black hair and it goes toward gray hair. And of course, the more dramatic one is the types of hair thinning that we see within a huge percentage of the population. So typically 50% of men at 50 years of age will have lost 50% of their hair density. And women too will, by and large, also have a more diffuse type of thinning of their scalp hair coverage with time. And that's kind of a really strong harbinger of youth, of lost youth being fed back to the individual. So it gives you an impression of your age, it gives you an impression of where you are in your society. It may also give you an impression about how healthy you feel your body is, because as you know from farmers trying to sell their cattle or their horses, a large part of the health of that beast is via the fur or the coat, the sheen of the coat. So it's a proxy for total body health. So you may feel once you're losing your hair that you're also losing some of your vitality more broadly in your total body, because we know of the blood vessels, the nerves, and everything else that's feeding into the scalp, which are also feeding into other parts of our same body.
There's so much feedback between what I think about this versus that versus inside versus outside. It's all over the place. Yeah, there's a lot there.
I feel what you're saying about the aging factor. My kids just yesterday were having fun pointing out the gray hairs that they're starting to see. It's okay. They're there. It's a fact of life, right? But I'm curious, what happens, Desmond, if I'm over time, like really worn down. Maybe I'm not getting good sleep. Maybe I'm really stressed. Like we've talked on this podcast before about how all of these factors are really connected and they affect our total body health, right? So if that's the case, if I'm under a lot of stress, not sleeping well, maybe my diet is suffering also, I'm not exercising, what effects will that have on my scalp and hair?
So skin is your body's largest organ, and of course is drawing from all of those different conditions of the body. Sleep deficit is very dramatic in terms of its impact on skin. We know that within the skin we have the stress axis, the same stress axis that you have in the brain and the spinal column and the adrenal gland. All of the same machinery is also invested in the skin. So psychosocial stress will be directly able to target features of the hair follicle and the scalp and the skin, as it will any other organ in the body. The skin is really plumbed in with all the different systems that make up the body. So it's not by accident that we have also very striking responses in the skin to conditions of psychosocial stress, to nutrient deficiencies, sleep deficiency. So all of that will have a biological impact that will flow into the scalp and if anything, and the skin. If anything, you may be able to see some of those changes in the body first on the skin before, for example, you'd ever figure out if something was happening to your kidney or to your liver. So it can be a kind of a canary in the coal mine to some extent if you see significant changes happening in the skin and in the scalp and in hair growth, to warrant further investigation as to what's happening maybe throughout the entire body.
Got it. So you're saying that just like with, say, the skin on my face or other indicators, I might notice in my hair first that the rest of my body is not functioning at its highest.
Yeah, I mean, there are examples. I think they often look at American presidents for this to see if they come in with black hair and then by the time they come out the other end, they've got gray hair. I think there's a lot of noise around Obama's hair color change. And that perhaps was due to increased psychosocial stress. Obviously, his genetics played a part, maybe sleep deficiency. I think he was a pretty good eater, though, in terms of the quality of the food, which may not always be the case amongst US presidents. So all of that will potentially play out in the scalp. And the graying aspect of scalp hair is often a visual cue to, particularly if it happens quickly, that something has been significantly perturbed in the body.
So what I'm hearing is, as per usual, all these parts of our health span are relating together. I'd love to zoom in specifically on any specific foods that can get us those nutrients that we need.
There is no particular single food. A balanced diet, I mean, it's a boring, answer to a very important question. I mean, there's certain amino acids, for example, like cysteine, nearly a fifth of the amino acids that make up hair protein is cysteine. So you can imagine there are certain dietary sources that would be, more, fulsome in certain amino acids. Antioxidants are also very important in this mix, and there can be also, given through the diet.
Okay, so you said antioxidants and proteins. Can you be specific? Like, where do we get those things?
In the context of antioxidants, we can get a lot of those from good quality fruit and vegetables. Now, we have to have a substantial, amount of those in our diet. We can't just have a cursory 1 carrot a month. It has to be a very significant part of the diet to ensure antioxidant supply. And of course, these foods have to be fresh and they have to be fairly close to the time where they were picked and not kind of necessarily circulating all around the world before they arrive at your plate. The protein story is very important. I mentioned cysteine, lysine, there's several others. So in addition to the proteins we mentioned, particularly cysteine and serine, fats are also very important because in our diet over the last 20 or 30 years, we've shifted gears from being richer with the omega-3s to now being probably too dominant with the omega-6. So in omega-3, you'll get it from flaxseed, for example, from fish. So those elements of your diet can boost your omega-3 levels, which is a healthier fat compared to the omega-6s. There are certain kind of fruits, if you're vegan, for example, you can get that from guacamole, for example, avocado is quite strong in these healthy fats as well. So there are many places to get both healthy proteins and healthy fats to ensure, ideal scalp and follicle and hair health. In addition to obviously the important micronutrients like iron and zinc and iodine and the B vitamins, et cetera, et cetera.
So Desmond, what are some common habits that maybe some of us have that's hurting our scalp without us even realizing it?
So it's probably a first world problem more than anything else in terms of the amount of stuff we do with our hair in terms of intervention, be they the physical stressors like hot tongues or very high temperature blow drying that may put stress on the hair and on the scalp. There's also the huge number of different chemicals. I was part of a kind of an interest group that was trying to unify the acidity or the pH of shampoos around the world, because we know now that a more acidic pH is better for the skin and for the hair. And for many, many years, people were using very alkaline products that will have damaged the scalp and the hair. So we're learning more about the types of chemicals that we should or shouldn't be putting on the hair, and then just the frequency and the kind of exuberance of these types of interventions before the scalp can recover from the last onslaught is also very important. But in a body that's well exercised and getting good sleep and good diet, it's remarkable how much intervention the scalp and the hair will put up with. But there is a finite limit. It grows about 1 centimeter a month. So if you've messed it up, you can cut it and you can predict when you'll have your desired hair length again. And some people can grow their hair and their scalp for up to 10 years. A meter of hair can be achieved by some. So it's a phenomenal factory in terms of the capacity to produce these fibers.
Desmond, we've talked about the science of what's going on beneath the surface on our scalp and in our hair. We've talked about the nutrition and the elements that will really set us up or hold us back, perhaps, from that same health. And then we've talked a little bit about the good things that we can do and the bad things we can do. As we sort of narrow in on the end of our time together, I'm wondering if you could share with us just one thing that we could do that would improve the health of our scalp. What would you say?
That's a tough one. Boil it all down to what it means to be human in terms of a healthy lifespan, health span. I would get each person to get somebody that was nearest and dearest to them to give them a gentle, relaxing scalp massage, hopefully to the point where they nod off and get some well-earned sleep. Extra blood flow to the follicles via that gentle massage probably also tickles those follicles as well. So if I were to boil it down into a single intervention, a good quality, gentle scalp massage from someone you love.
I think that is my most favorite takeaway ever. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and this whole conversation has been really wonderful, Desmond. Thank you so much for stopping by to be our teacher today.
No problem. It's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
And thanks to all of you for listening at home. Make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and also subscribe on YouTube. We would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions or comments on these episodes, feel free to leave them in the comments or send them to us on our socials. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.